Hi, this is Melanie Fine, the Chemistry Maven. We're going to work through our Unit 0 packet. This is our pre-AP Chemistry math unit. So it's Unit 0. It's not one of the 9 units of chemistry, but it's arguably even more important. And we're going to work through this packet one lesson at a time. So the first thing you want to do is get out your packet on something that you can write on. So print it out, or if you have this fancy iPad thing that I have, you can do it that way as well. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so this is what your packet looks like, and this is my screen. We're on page 1. Today's lesson, we're going to cover scientific notation. Let's start. A number in scientific notation has a significand, which is the number in front, and it has an exponential. This is the exponential. To convert a number in scientific notation to standard notation, you need to move the decimal in the significand the number of places indicated by the exponent. If the exponent is positive, as this one is, we're going to move the decimal to the right. And if the exponent were negative, we would move the decimal to the left. So using this number as our example, it's 1.5 times 10 to the positive 3. Because it's positive, we would move the decimal 3 places, 1, 2, 3 places to the right. So that number would be 1,500. Let's do this practice problem together. 3.1 times 10 to the second power. Again, the exponent is positive, which means we're going to move the decimal to the right. So the decimal is here between the 3 and the 1. And we're going to move it one space to the right and another space to the right. So this becomes 310. Now I want you to solve the next problem. The answer is right there, but try not to look at the answer. Solve the next problem, and then come back when you are finished. Pause the video now and solve the problem. So if you're back, it means that you've solved this problem already. 9.75 times 10 to the negative 3. Notice that the exponent is negative, which means we're going to move the decimal to the left, and we're going to move the decimal to the left 3 places. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. So here's our decimal. So our number becomes, and I always put a 0 before my decimals, 0.00975, which hopefully is this number as well. Page 2. To convert a number from standard notation to scientific notation, we do the following steps. So the first thing I do is I multiply the number by 1. And the way I multiply it by 1 is I do it in a sort of fancy way. I multiply it by 10 to the 0 power. And then I'm going to move the decimal so that it is just after the first non-zero digit in the number. I'm just going to go over this, and it'll be easier to understand once I do the sample problem. But if I had to move the decimal to the left to get the decimal just behind that first non-zero digit, making the number smaller, I'm going to raise the 10 by that same number, making the exponent larger. If, on the other hand, I had to move the decimal to the right to get just behind or just after the first non-zero digit, making that number larger, I'm going to raise the 10 by the negative of the same number, making the exponent smaller. So here's an example, 2005. Again, the first step is I'm going to multiply the number by 1, or 10 to the 0, which is 1, right? I can multiply any number by 1. Then I'm going to move the decimal. There's no decimal written here, but it's implied at the end of a whole number. I'm going to move the decimal so that it is just after the first non-zero digit, which means it has to be after the 2. So I'm going to move it to the left, making the number smaller, 1, 2, 3 places. Since I moved the decimal to the left, making the number smaller by 3 places, I'm going to account for that by making the exponent larger by 3 places. So that would be our answer. I want you to solve problems 114, and that might be the last one. Let me see if there's one on the next page. Just 114 on your own. And then when you come back, I will go over it. So pause the video now, do this problem, and then I will go over it. Welcome back. I hope you pause the video. This is the number they gave us, 0.0861. First thing I'm going to do is multiply it by 1, i.e. 10 to the 0 power, which is equal to 1. And then I want to move to the decimal to just to the right, just after the first non-zero digit. And the first non-zero digit here is 8. So notice the decimal is right here. So I'm going to move the decimal to just after the 8, which means I'm going to move it to the right, making this number larger 2 spaces. Because I made the number larger by 2 spaces, I'm going to make the exponent smaller by 2 spaces. So I'm going to multiply that by a -2. And that is our lesson on scientific notation. I included a worksheet if you need more practice on this, and come back for the next lesson on metric conversions.